Ever find yourself like daydreaming?
Yeah.
About just slipping into a conversation in another language?
Oh, totally.
Like you picture yourself in a cafe, maybe in Italy or something.
Yeah.
And you just nail the order in perfect Italian, like you've been speaking it your whole life.
It'd be amazing.
Well, today's deep dive, it might have you booking that plane ticket a little sooner than you thought. We're getting into speakeasy.
I love this method.
Me too. And it's all about making language learning, especially for beginners, way less intimidating.
Yeah, and I think what's so refreshing is it's not about some expensive software or some kind of, magic trick.
There's no magic here.
It's really about changing how we think about learning a language in the first place.
I'm all about that. And one of the things that really stood out to me about speakeasy was how they handle vocabulary. Because you're not stuck memorizing like obscure grammar terms or anything.
No, not at all. And the source really emphasizes that it's about giving you practical words, the phrases you'd actually use, like right away from day one.
Give me an example.
Okay, so think, how much does this cost?
Mm-hmm.
Or where's the bathroom? Stuff you actually need to know how to say.
Exactly.
Way more useful than, say, knowing how to conjugate verbs in some crazy tense you'll never use.
It's like, hold off on Shakespeare, let's get you ordering a pizza like a pro.
Exactly.
But speakeasy isn't just about individual words, is it?
No, definitely not.
It's also about putting those words together, right?
Exactly. Sentence structure is so key.
And they explain it in a way that, at least for me, just clicked.
Yeah, they make it make sense. For me, it's like, those Lego blocks.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
So you learn a couple basic structures like I would like.
Right, those building blocks.
And suddenly you can build anything. It opens up so many possibilities.
And I think that's where the easy part really comes in, right? Because they're not throwing this huge grammar rule book at you right off the bat.
No, definitely not. And the source talks about this a lot, how important it is to not overwhelm beginners.
Yeah, I've been there. It's so intimidating.
Instead of this huge, overwhelming task, it's like they break it down into smaller, achievable steps.
I like that. Bite-sized learning.
Exactly. And every little step, every little thing you get right, it builds your confidence.
Which makes you want to keep going.
Exactly. And speaking of keeping things manageable, they have all these examples, these little dialogues.
Love those.
They're simple, but they're so effective for practice.
It's all about those everyday situations, right?
Exactly.
Things like ordering food, asking for directions, stuff you'll actually use when you're out and about. And that's huge for building confidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even if you just master a few of those basic interactions, it makes a world of difference. You feel like you can actually use the language, not just study it.
Totally. So we've got the vocab, we're putting sentences together, but then there's pronunciation, which can be its own whole thing, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That can be a big hurdle for people. I know it was for me.
What I thought was really interesting, though, was how Speakeasy tackled it. They didn't just say, okay, repeat after me. They actually explained
The mechanics of it.
Yes, like how to make the sounds, how your mouth should move.
They do this really cool thing with minimal pairs. Have you heard of those?
I think so. Remind me.
So it's like they take two sounds that people often get mixed up,
Okay.
and they show you the subtle differences, like how to move your tongue to get it right. It's amazing. It really works.
It's like they've thought of everything, all those little moments where you think, wait, how do I even make that sound?
Yeah, exactly.
They give you the tools to figure it out, which is huge. So, okay, you've got the words down, the sentences, the pronunciation. What I really appreciate, though, is how Speakeasy brings it all together.
Yes. They bring it back to real-world use.
Because what's the point of all this if you can't actually use it right?
Exactly. They really hammer that home.
Yeah.
It's about being able to navigate real situations.
Like ordering that cappuccino in Italy.
Yes. Like actually using the language to connect with people, to experience new things.
It makes it real, you know? It gives it a purpose.
Exactly. It's not just about passing a test. It's about connecting with the world around you.
It's like they understand that the goal isn't just to learn a language, it's to actually use it, to connect with people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to something really important, why this approach works so well, especially for beginners.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's their secret sauce?
Well, think about it. One of the biggest things that holds people back from learning a new language is that they get overwhelmed.
Oh, 100%. It's like, where do you even start, you know?
Exactly. New sounds, new words, grammar rules. It's a lot to take in.
My brain is already fried just thinking about it.
Right. And the source that they get that, they talk about how crucial it is to avoid that feeling of overwhelm, especially at the beginning.
So how do they do that?
Instead of throwing everything at you at once, it's like they've broken it down into these like bite-sized steps.
Yes.
Manageable chunks.
Oh, I love that. Bite-sized learning. Instead of trying to climb Mount Everest, it's like they're saying, hey, let's take a walk to the corner store.
Yes, exactly. And each small step you take,
Each little win.
it motivates you to keep going. The source even talked about how those little wins, they tap into something in our brains.
Yes.
Like we're wired to crave that feeling of accomplishment.
It's so true. Like, remember that feeling when you finally learned to ride a bike?
Yes,
That I did it moment.
it's powerful. And Speakeasy taps right into that.
That makes so much sense. So it's not just about avoiding overwhelm. It's about making the learning process, well, fun.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really important aspect.
Yeah.
They're big on active learning.
What does that mean exactly? So it's not about sitting there with a textbook just memorizing verb conjugations. It's about engaging with the language. Doing exercises, having conversations.
Actually speaking it right from the start.
Yes, right from day one. Because think about how we learned our first language.
Oh, that's a good point.
It wasn't by memorizing grammar rules. It was by listening, copying, experimenting.
It's like we were little language sponges.
Exactly. And Speakeasy, they want us to tap back into that natural ability we all have.
It's like they're saying, remember how you learned as a kid? Let's do that again. I love it.
It's brilliant. And that actually leads us to another benefit. They talk about the emphasis on listening and speaking right from the start.
Which makes sense if you think about it. Right. It's how we naturally pick up language. When you're a baby, you listen to the world around you.
You're soaking it all in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Picking up patterns, rhythms, all before you even know what a grammar rule is.
And you're not self-conscious about it at all.
Yeah.
You're just doing it.
And that's the beauty of this approach. It encourages us to reconnect with that, to be playful, to not be afraid of making mistakes.
Because mistakes are part of the learning process, right? It's how we get better.
Exactly.
You know what this reminds me of? Something an acting coach once told me, actually.
Oh, tell me.
They said, the best way to learn is by doing. Like just diving in with passion without overthinking it.
I love that.
And it seems like Speakeasy is taking that same approach and applying it to language.
Absolutely. And what's really cool is these principles, they apply to so much more than just language.
Oh, totally.
Learning a new skill, anything, really. It's about letting go of those mental barriers we build for ourselves.
We get so caught up in doing things the right way that we forget how to just play, to experiment,
Yes. And that's something the source really emphasizes.
That beginner's mindset.
Exactly. It's about being open to making mistakes, knowing that every time you stumble, every awkward pause, it's actually a step forward.
It's like those are the moments where the real learning happens.
Exactly. Embrace the awkward.
So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, who's ready to throw out the language learning rule book,
Rip it up.
and just dive in, what are some of the key takeaways from our Speakeasy deep dive?
Okay, well, first and foremost, keep it practical.
I like that.
Focus on what you actually need to be able to say. Don't get bogged down in the nitty-gritty of grammar rules right away.
Unless you want to impress people with your knowledge of the subjunctive mood.
Exactly. Start with those everyday phrases, the stuff that will allow you to actually use the language.
Exactly. Order that pizza. Book that trip to Italy.
Yes. And number 2, don't forget to have fun with it. Make it a game. Find ways to work it into your daily life.
Even if it's just changing your phone's language settings, little things like that can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And lastly, remember, it's a journey. You're not going to become fluent overnight.
Patience, right. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Celebrate the small victories, those little aha moments, because those add up over time.
They really do. It's about enjoying the process, the whole messy, amazing journey of learning something new. Well, on that note, I'm off to practice my Italian.
Me too.
To everyone listening, we'll see you next time for another deep dive. And until then, happy learning.